In 3ds Max 7.5, we've added a number of new features, and one of those is the new improved file linking feature. If I go into File and pick File Link Manager, I can go in and decide what file I want to link to, and I'm going to pick this one right here. Now what this allows me to do is link to any DWG file coming out of packages such as AutoCAD, Revit, Architectural Desktop. It allows me to maintain an ongoing link. So instead of just importing a file, I now am watching the changes that happen in that original file as well and can bring those back in regardless of what I've done inside of Max. So I've got the file chosen that I want to use. I'm just going to go in and make sure my unit's set up. In this case, I'm going to stick with metric, and I'm going to work with meters. And I'm going to tell it whatever's coming in, rescale it, and I can define what the incoming units were in the DWG file. I happen to know it was millimeters in the DWG file. So I just say attach this file. I can also select layers to include or exclude if I need to. So let's just attach the file. So there's our file. You can see it's a pretty simple box of a house that I created inside of Revit really quickly. It's got 2 floors, a spiral staircase, and a bunch of windows. First thing I want you to note is this file came out of Revit with materials attached, so you can see there's glass in those windows, but it's already got opacities on it. Let's just slide into the house a little further. So let's say right around there. And just because I hate manipulating myself around interior spaces with the standard arc rotate, I'm going to use the walkthrough cam. Just makes it easier to move around. Now I can work around like I'm in a first-person shooter level. So let's just pull ourselves down a little bit. There we go. So there's my view as of now. I'm just going to widen that view out so we can see a little more of what's going on. Alright, so there's my environment. Now I'm going to call up my materials editor, and what I want you to notice is there are actual defined materials on these surfaces coming from Revit. So if I click on the wall, it imports masonry concrete blocks. So that's what that wall is. If I go over to another swatch and say let's pick from the floor, you can see I've got a default floor material. So we'll just go to the wall first, and I'm going to show you one of the other new features inside of 3ds Max 7.5, and that is the new real-world scale on materials. So for instance, let's go into Diffuse Map, pick a bitmap. I'm going to pick the brick wall texture here. You can see what that looks like, and I'm going to open it. And as would be expected, if I show this in the scene, you can see it went on more than just the one wall because there are multiple walls that came from Revit with that material assigned. We've just got static. And the problem is, of course, is that maps have no reference to the real world size. They don't know how big they actually are in the real world, and they don't know how big the wall is. So what we can do is now turn on the new Use Real World Scale function, and you can see it's actually defaulting to 0.025 meters by 0.025 meters for that brick wall texture, which is way too small. So we've got a little bit of wall happening right in there. So what we got to do is just change that, and I'm going to assume that that wall is about 3.5 meters by 3.5 meters. So that's the size of the texture before it has to tile. And I just hit enter, and you can see now the bricks look much more accurate. And I'm just going to blow this up to a full size just so you can see the brick on there. So the bricks look much more accurate, and I can easily go in and say actually they should be a little bit bigger, so let's go make that map 4 meters by 4 meters. Now the beauty is any changes that happen to the Revit file, when they come through, if there's new walls added with different mapping coordinates, if the walls change shape, get lengthened, the bricks will maintain this scale at all times. They'll always be 4 meters by 4 meters for that texture map. So with that set up, let's just do one more just so you can see that happen. And this is the floor here, so I'm just going to go in. Again, pick a bitmap. We're going to pick the wood plank beach, and I want you to notice that the material itself is about 3 times higher than it is wide, maybe even 4. So we just open that up, and again I'm just going to show that on the floor here, and I'm just going to adjust my view so you can see it. So it's just this really fine pattern right now. Again, use real world scale, and if we just take it to 1:1 first, just to give you an idea, you can see it's not exactly right. They're a little bit short, but if I go to 1:3, now it gives me these long planks, which is much more accurate and exactly what I'm looking for. So very quick and easy to set up. So here you can see what real-world scale can do for me, and I can use this in any number of ways, in any number of markets. It's obviously particularly handy in the design visualization market, where it can allow me to set up real numbers for the sizes of my texture maps, but also very handy in the entertainment space, where you can define these sizes for materials and know that they'll work every time as long as your scenes are also to scale. So now I want to just show you how the Revit model can be changed and brought in. So I'm just going to go in and take a look at the File Link Manager. So let's just go to here, and we'll go to Files. So as you can see here, the file that we're linked to now is this little red flag marked on it. This shows that the file, the DWG file, has actually changed. Something in Revit has changed it, and now we're being notified to make the change ourselves. So before I reload it, I'm just going to give you an idea of what's in the scene now. So I can just kind of pan around a little bit and move a little to one side. And what I'm going to do is just kind of slide up. So you can see this wall here is actually going to be pushed back and some new walls created. And same with this wall. These two windows will also be replaced with 3 much larger windows, and you'll have some new walls here as well. So I just go in here and say reload, and you can see in the basic tab we have controls for how the geometry is brought in. One of the new features is that we automatically generate coordinates for our objects when they're brought in. This way you don't have to go through and put mapping coordinates on every object as you're putting in your materials. It's automatically done for you. If I'd created cameras and lights inside of Revit, those would automatically come in for me as well. In the advanced area, right now I'm set to use scene material definitions. This allows me to say, yes, bring in the new versions of the geometry, but keep the type of materials that I've created inside of Max. Don't go and throw them away. Keep those definitions. So I can just say, OK, bring those in. And you can see there we have the walls all pushed back. Now you note there are new walls here, and those automatically have the correct brick. This is because instead of assigning a whole new material, I modified the material that came from Revit. So when Revit sent a new wall with that same material on it, it automatically got the modifications applied to it as well. So it's very handy when you do stuff like that. If you can keep your material definitions synced between Revit and 3ds Max, you'll know that every time Revit sends a concrete wall, it'll get a specific look on it. So in this case, you can see again, new windows. The floor, all the textures are automatically tiled and stretched out to meet the wall. So again, instead of getting this weird stretchy kind of thing, it's just tiled it correctly so that the floor has been continued. So this is an extremely powerful feature when you're doing design visualization, as it allows you to keep synchronized with the DWG files much more easily. For those of you in the entertainment space, if you're doing any kind of work in digital backdrops, virtual sets, those types of things, more and more in the industry, these are initially being designed in CAD packages like Revit, simply because they're really well designed to build architectural spaces. If you're going to do that, you now have the perfect link into the final visualization tool and the final rendering tool to create your backdrops for film.